Lawmakers in Missouri have officially passed their version of an anti-abortion bill, which would effectively ban abortion after 8 weeks. It now heads to the governor to be signed into law. Now, during the debate over this legislation, a state lawmaker by the name of Barry Hovis had an unfortunate thing to say while he was trying to make his case in favor of the legislation. Take a look.
Let's just say someone goes out and they have, or they're raped or they're sexually assaulted one night after a college party. Because most of my rapes were not the gentleman jumping out of the bushes that nobody had ever met. That was 1 or 2 times out of 100. Most of them were date rapes or consensual rapes, which were all terrible. But I'd sit in court when juries would struggle with those type of situations where it was a he said, she said, and they would find the person not guilty. Unfortunate if it really happened, but I had no control over that.
So a consensual rape is, that's not a thing. Consent means that there is no rape. And so later he said he misspoke and claimed he meant to say that law enforcement officials always have to determine whether a sexual assault claim is consensual or rape. He then said he knew there was no such thing as consensual rape. But if you listen to what he said on the floor, he said most of them were date rapes or consensual rapes, which were all terrible. So I don't know, like—
He mentioned 2 things and then said all.
Yeah.
So it didn't sound like it was just an adjoinder.
Yeah, it seems like he said what he really meant and then got a little bit of backlash and then
You think
kind of
so?
changed.
I don't know. I think he misspoke.
Really?
Yeah, we don't know, of course, but that's my guess. And it's based on context. So Todd Akin was a Senate candidate in Missouri who talked about consensual rape before. And it took him a while to apologize. And it didn't seem like he really meant it, okay? And so you can tell when something's fake. And here, his apology seemed, I didn't see it in person, but based on the way that it was written in the articles, this seemed genuine, like, whoa, did I say, I didn't mean that. I didn't know I said that. And so
I disagree.
The fact that it's immediate, I think, helps his case.
Yes, but maybe just also, I think every year that passes, our media reactions are getting so much faster and more amplified that people realize, oh my God, I gotta get on top of this maybe quicker. Only because I think maybe what he thinks in his mind is that even if it's not a date, if it's at a party and somebody ends up passing out and not being able to give consent, that's a consensual rape because they didn't say the word no. So it could be what you're saying, but it could not be. And my general point is, if you're on the floor of your state house saying these things sloppily, it's because you're in a general disposition of not caring at all about the women who are claiming rape and who have been assaulted, and you're just trying to marginalize it in your language so overall that I don't even think you should get the credit even if you were wrong. You should be on the side of, again, people and on the side of victims and then work backwards from there.
I just think it's fascinating how this is an issue that specifically impacts the lives and the health and the livelihood of women. And far too often, the lawmakers who have the strongest and most draconian positions on these issues are men. And so they stand up there and they make these declarative statements when they also, by the way, simultaneously demonstrate that they have absolutely no understanding of female anatomy whatsoever, of how our bodies work, how pregnancy works, how rape works in some cases.
Yeah.
And so they monopolize the conversation, and it's so incredibly insulting because it's something that doesn't affect them, it doesn't affect their lives. And over again, they showed this fundamental lack of understanding over what this means for women.
And this is not meant to be a slam at them. It will sound this way, but it's these people, like you said, that don't even seem like they have any familiarity with women's bodies. If you have not ever been able to get women in your life and to have relationships and consensual relationships, you're even further removed from the average person. You're like, oh, women, man, they can just not have sex. They could just have a baby, carry it to term. They don't know what it is like to be a woman. They don't know their anatomy. They wish they did, but they don't. And it makes them these bitter men that can control and get access to women's bodies through legislation instead of through a consensual relationship. It's really disgusting.
So I want to correct one quick thing I said. So I talked about Todd Akin. He did talk about rape, and that is partly why he lost this race. And he did not pull it back. But he did not say consensual rape. He said legitimate rape.
Right.
But what he said was actually even worse than that, because he said if you have had a legitimate rape, then the woman's body rejects the baby and will not get pregnant.
Yeah.
Now that's counterfactual, not remotely true scientifically, and makes it seem like there are legitimate rapes and illegitimate rapes. And if you got pregnant, then I guess you wanted it. It's like, see, that's horrible in every way you could imagine.
Yeah.
This guy, I totally understand what you guys are saying, because why are you even bringing up the word consensual in the context of rape?
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense. On the other hand, he seems to misspeak a lot. If you noticed earlier in that speech, he said most of my rapes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now he was a prosecutor. Okay. He was a law enforcement official. Okay. So he meant the rapes that I was
Prosecuting?
presumably seeking justice for.
But
right?
once again, on that exact point, he also is seeing it as a dry fact and not a human occurrence. Most of my rapes, you don't say that if you're somebody with empathy for women who have been raped. You don't say most of my rapes were this and actually weren't this, and you got to figure out if they're bad or not bad. Woohoo! You actually say, in the times that I've been presented with these horrible occurrences of women having their own ability to decide their own bodies and their own sex life for them. And that, if you start your sentence that way and your frame of mind that way, then you do not ever get to a place where you accidentally say consensual rapes also whoops.
Yeah, and look, let's just keep it real. The abortion debates that are taking place in red states throughout the country right now demonstrate two things. One, you have men in this country who really want to control the bodies of women, and two, they've never cared about how women are victimized by sexual assault and rape. I mean, the way that they talk about it during these debates, the way that they've dismissed it in the past, the way that they haven't, and these are state lawmakers, I understand that, but on a federal level, the way the Republican Party over and over again tries to fight against the Violence Against Women Act, which would give women the resources to pursue justice against people who have victimized them in domestic violence and sexual assault. So these are, I think, very indicative of what we've seen from the Republican Party throughout our history. They're just continuing with it. And for Republican women who get offended by people like me who question why they're Republican, I just ask you to understand why I asked that question, why I get so frustrated with conservative women. Because why would you support a party that sees you as a second-class citizen, that constantly puts your needs and, more importantly, your future and your happiness and your ability to thrive on the back burner just so these politicians can win brownie points with evangelical voters? It's sick.
The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.